Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick at Stridewise.com. Today I am taking a look at the very ambitious Chelsea Blitz from Wolf & Shepherd, the boot that's meant to be a hybrid running shoe dress shoe. So Wolf & Shepherd is an extremely unusual boot company. It was founded in 2014 by Justin Schneider, who used to be a track and field athlete at Notre Dame. And then he went on to design running shoes for Adidas and a couple of other companies. And long story short, he didn't like the fact that dress shoes don't feel like sneakers. One thing led to another. And then he came up with this boot and a wide variety of other boots and shoes that are meant to replicate the feeling of running shoes, or at least come as close as possible to replicating that feeling. So like the first shoe they came up with, the first prototype, just had the foam heel of running shoes glued to the bottom of a pair of old dress shoes. And then as the iterations went on, you come up with this shoe, which has like 6 different layers of very unusual materials going on in the sole. So I'm gonna get into all that when I discuss the sole later on. But first, let's take a look at this shoe and see how it holds up as a Chelsea boot. So as a quick overview of the aesthetics of this boot, all the hype is around what's going on in the sole, which you can't actually see. But the boot itself, it's a pretty nice looking Chelsea boot. As I said, they've got a bunch of other dress shoes and boots, but I had a look at Google and I'm pretty sure this Chelsea boot is their most popular boot that they offer. This is made from full grain calfskin. It's combination tan for like a bit of a nice depth of color. Obviously it's burnished on the toe and the counter. I don't usually love burnished toes on boots. Like it just makes them a bit more, there's a bit more going on there, makes them a bit more complicated. I prefer a simple aesthetic. But Chelsea boots, I'm just more forgiving. I think this still looks pretty good. This is made from 4 pieces of leather as well, unlike the RM Williams, which is probably my favorite Chelsea boot, which is a hole cut. Nonetheless, pretty well constructed shoe. It's also fully lined with sheepskin for extra comfort, and it's very lightweight as well. Even though it's got a million zillion layers in the sole, the cut is a little bit higher than I was expecting for these boots. This is over 6 inches, so you do have to have the right socks for them. I've been wearing these for quite a while, and that's something that I found. And with the sole, I was expecting a running shoe-like tread, which actually isn't that uncommon in boots with rubber soles today. But this has a pretty classic looking rubber sole with a bit of leather on the heel here. Very important to note, this does not have a Goodyear welt. This is a cemented sole, or it's actually like a combination Blake and cemented sole I'm going to discuss later. But what that comes up with is that there's no stitching around the outside of the toe box or the vamp here. So it makes for a shoe that is relatively slim looking in that regard, and again, pretty lightweight. So is the leather any good? Well, this is calfskin, right? So this makes sense because the product is trying to be closer to a dressy-ish boot as opposed to a rugged-y boot. Calfskin is super common in dressy-ish shoes because it appears more delicate and it wrinkles more finely, so they look a bit less beat up as they age. But calfskin actually has more tensile strength than cowhide. That's my understanding anyway, because the fibers are close together. And this is full grain leather. So it is cut from the top layer of the animal's hide. The boots are made in Portugal, but this is Italian leather from Italian calves. They say it actually comes from the same tanneries as Louis Vuitton. And importantly, the tanning process uses a combination of chrome and vegetable tanning, which means it's not entirely dissimilar from Chrome XL leather. There's more to Chrome XL than just combination tanned, but that combination vegetable and chrome tanning does make for a leather with a pretty good depth of color and a nice amount of shine as well. I've been wearing these for a little while. I've been wearing them in, as you can see, so it has been wrinkling a little bit, but I don't think it's done so in an unattractive way. Like this was not unforeseen on my part. So the leather's pretty good quality. Like I wouldn't say it's as nice as the leather I would expect for this price, but that's because more of the cost is going toward this sole, which I think I'm okay with. Now, Wolf & Shepherd are really big fans of Saphir for leather care. They call it the best brand for full grain leather. And that's just their opinion, but Saphir is a very highly regarded company in the world of shoe care. So they make it pretty simple, right? They just say you need Saphir's shoe cream to condition the leather. They like Saphir's wax, making it more weather resistant. And for both of them together, which they call like a 2-in-1 shampoo, they like Saphir's Renovator, which is good for both conditioning and weatherproofing the leather. Or rather, it's making it more weather resistant than technically weatherproof waterproofing it or waterproofing it. They're not waterproof boots, but they did say that they are very water resistant. So that's not something you should have to worry about too much. One thing I did want to point out though is that I found out after I'd been wearing these boots for a week that I was supposed to put wax on them to protect the skin before the first wear. I'm gonna call that a con. Like, I want my boots to be ready to wear right out of the box without having to buy other products for them, especially when they cost as much as these boots do. The idea is to help to protect the skin against like liquid splashes and things like that. So I didn't do that. The boots look fine in general, but I did nonetheless get a couple of stains on the vamp from little droplets just from like walking around and using these boots in the real world. So that's pretty annoying. If you want to avoid that, make sure you get some wax, put it on before the first wear. All right, let's talk about this sole. So this is what the inside of the soles look like. All the shoes have the same layers in the sole right now anyway. The outsole is rubber with a bit of leather on the heel, and like it sounds a lot like a regular boot too. So like it's not particularly cushioned, which I'll discuss more in the next section. But anyway, after this outsole, you've got HDEVA, which is kind of like a shock absorber. The shock absorption is really good. That's the material that's used in running shoes. It's also used in some other boot companies. Then there's a lightweight Swiss insole and a carbon fiber shank for arch support. The arch support's very good too. There's proprietary memory foam as well for some squishiness. And then there's the sheepskin insole. Now with that many layers, you'd think this would not be all that flexible, but check it out. It's a super flexible sole, which is really nice, and it is what you would expect given all the marketing for this product. So I was a big fan of that. So when it comes to the welting, these shoes are Blake welted and cemented. So it's like a very unusual sort of process. A big part of their marketing is that you can have a nice cemented shoe. Cementing is traditionally used in sneakers when the upper is just glued to the sole basically. This is quite a bit more complicated than that, especially since there's also Blake welting going on in there. But it retains the downside of cemented soles in that it can't be resoled by a regular cobbler. The good news is that Wolf and Shepherd can resole it if you want them to, so the uppers can last through many soles. They're just the only people who can resole it, which might make that process a bit more frustrating. So as for fit and sizing, these shoes run from 7 to 15 right now. That can always change. And what's very unusual is that they suggest you size up, which I have never seen before in a boot company. Actually, when you get onto the website, they have this questionnaire they ask you to fill out with some details about your feet. And eventually it spat out a recommendation for me to take a size 12. I am normally, if something's true to size, I'm 11.5 in boots. Most of my boots are 11 because boots tend to run large. They told me to get a 12, waited for them to come in the mail. They got here, they were much too big. I had to send them back. That was kind of a pain in the ass. When it came back, yeah, I got 11.5. It fit fine, but I gotta say probably the most common complaint that I hear about these boots is the fit. The fit is a little bit strange. It is tighter around the toes than it is around the heel. And that's like that's a very common complaint that I've heard. It's tight around the toes. The fit's a bit strange. When I got these, I had the same experience and I was ready to tear them apart for that. I was about to get upset about it, but you know, I make sure that I wear my boots for a while. I make sure that I wear them in so I can just like figure out any issues like that. And after about a week, the leather did stretch and it was fine. So I didn't really have any complaints with the fit at the end of the day or at the end of the week, but it is worth pointing out, yeah, the fit, a lot of people have issues with this fit. Now, as for actual comfort, like what's it like to walk around in these boots? That's the big question. That's what everyone is asking. I will say this, one thing that surprised me with these shoes, yes, they have a million layers in the sole that are very similar to running shoes, but the outsole, like this is still a leather and rubber outsole like a boot, you know? Like it's not that unusual from the outside. So it's more like you're wearing running shoes with like a regular stiff layer of like leather and rubber from a regular pair of boots, if that makes sense, you know? It's still very different to a regular pair of shoes, but like, it's still pretty boot-like at the end of the day. Now, again, they are more comfortable than your normal boots. I mean, the shock absorption is really good. And they have this EVA comfort strip in there as well, which is again, quite a lot like what they have in sneakers. Thursday Boots also has an EVA comfort strip, so it sort of reminded me of that feeling a little bit, but I think they have a different kind of EVA. And also, of course, there's all this other stuff going on. I would say that Wolf and Shepherd sole is more airy and fluffy than any other boot. It's a little bit like walking on partly deflated balloons sometimes, like it's quite airy, especially when contrasted with a hard undersole there. But generally, yeah, it's very comfortable, and of course it's also very lightweight, which does contribute to the feeling of it being like a pair of sneakers. So it is pretty fun to run around in these, but you know, it's loud when you do it because this is still a leather and rubber sole. Now, as for the price, this can change any time, but you're looking at between like $415 and $445 for a pair of these. I paid $425 myself. So they are not messing around when it comes to the price. I mean, as I mentioned, the leather does come from a pretty famous tannery. It's this Italian calfskin. They did put in a lot of work into making a relatively high quality leather. And of course, with all the stuff that goes into the sole, that's gonna jack up the price a bit. This is still, of course, cheaper than my R.M. Williams Comfort Craftsman, which is my favorite Chelsea boot and is also extraordinarily comfortable, albeit in slightly different ways. But yeah, $425-ish. That is relatively expensive, and also they don't have a satisfaction guarantee. Like, you can return them if they're like unworn, but if you wear them for like a few days or something and you don't like them, you are stuck with them. Now, that's not especially uncommon when it comes to boots, but especially because this feeling and the way the boots are constructed is pretty unusual. Some people would have more peace of mind if they had that money back guarantee. So I don't know, that's just worth pointing out. All right, so why should you get a pair of Wolf & Shepherd boots? Look, this leather's pretty nice, all things considered. When you take the cost of the boot and the technology in the sole and everything else into account, I'm pretty happy with the quality of this leather. It's a nice lightweight shoe as well, which is nice. Pretty versatile. I mean, they're about as versatile as any Chelsea boot, you know, so very nice with jeans, very nice with khakis, very nice with chinos. Whether or not you can wear Chelsea boots with a suit is something that is often hotly debated in boot circles. I am an Australian man living in New York City. In Australia, I would say you can wear these boots with a suit because the R.M. Williams boot is like so ingrained in the fabric of society. In America, I think you have a harder time wearing Chelsea boots with a suit. I don't know, it's up to you. But the nice looking Chelseas, they aren't very different to other Chelseas on the market, so that's always very nice to say. And then of course there's this sole, which is what all the hype is about with these shoes. Very good shock absorption, pretty good arch support, and it's very nice and soft. Again, it's very lightweight. So there's plenty of pros to that. I will not say it's like walking around in a running shoe. It is more like walking around in half of a running shoe. But that's still a lot better than most of the boots out there when it comes to comfort. So yeah, they're comfortable. Okay, now you may have some issues with this shoe. They are well over $400, so that's gonna be a deal breaker for some folks. I think it's pretty decent quality shoe as far as leather and the sole and everything goes. But yeah, over $400, that's just, a lot of people aren't happy to pay that much money for a pair of shoes, which is fine, that's your prerogative. They don't feel exactly like a pair of running shoes as I was sort of promised with the advertising. I'm not disappointed by it. I was sort of expecting to have like a soft rubber sole like on the Taft Jack boot, something like that. This doesn't have that. But the upside of that is that it is still more versatile than it would have been if they'd really gone with a very sneaker-like sole. So I think the compromise is good. But if you wanted to get a pair of boots that feel exactly like runners, you might be a bit disappointed with them in that regard. There are no other widths available, it's just the one width. This weird Blake cement hybrid sole makes them very hard to resole. Wolf & Shepherd can do it, but your neighborhood cobbler probably can't. That might be kind of bothersome when it comes time to resole them. And then finally, the fit is an issue for a lot of people. I mean, again, for me, when I got them, they were a little tight around the toes, well, pretty tight around the toes. They stretched. At the end of the day, it was fine, but there are still plenty of people out there who complain about this fit. And I will say it is unlike any other fit that I've had in boots. So yeah, that could be a problem for some people. All right, those are my thoughts on the mold-breaking Chelsea Blitz boot from Wolf & Shepherd. If you want to read more of my thoughts with a bit more of a thorough breakdown and some nicer pictures, just make sure you Google the full review. Just do Stridewise and Wolf & Shepherd, that should show up. And make sure you subscribe because I have a whole lot more boot reviews coming up after this.